Hey guys, Coach Keaton here. I just wanted to go ahead and walk you through this lecture as we intro World War One, as we're starting to wrap up our Unit 8 here in World History. So you have your sheet out, so let's just go through this. So, as we started this unit, we saw that industrialism was a huge part of the growth of Europe. Um, and then it moved into this imperialism, right? Okay, where the scramble for Africa saw the colonization and imperialization of Africa, and all of this is as this imperialism continued to grow, um, throughout Europe. We see that these European countries um, built up their armies. Okay, and so, why were they doing this? Okay, well, this was to show power, to show that how large and powerful they were. It also hopes that other countries would not attack. All right, so if my country appears to be huge and big and strong, maybe other countries will not attack us. And all this is that there would not be war, hopes that there would not be war. Okay, well, we obviously know that this doesn't work, right? We see in June 28th, 1914, that there's the assassination of Franz Ferdinand of Austria and Hungary. And as a result of that assassination, 1 month later, Austria Hungary declares war on Serbia. Okay, and this is in essence the beginning of World War One. Um, as Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia, we see that Russia comes to support Serbia. Um, Germany then gets involved and declares war on Russia. Germany then also attacks France, in essence, and then Great Britain gets involved to try to keep Germany from getting any closer to them. All right, so this leads to these two alliances. Okay, and alliances are partnerships, right? Okay, and so the first is the Allied powers. The Allied powers are France, Britain, Russia, Italy, Japan, and then the United States gets involved in 1917, which we know is 3 years after the war begins. We'll talk about that a little bit in just a few minutes, though. So these are the Allied powers, and then the Central powers um, are Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and then the Ottoman Empire. Okay, Ottoman Empire is down in that Turkey area of Southwest Asia. Okay, we see that World War One ushers in this age of modern warfare. Okay, and what we see is that it's the introduction of things that were not prior to this a part of warfare. So in modern warfare, we see machine guns, we see tanks and armored vehicles, we see the use of planes in combat, and then we also see the introduction of chemical warfare. All right, so chemicals that are used on people to inflict pain or death or whatnot. So during this time too, we see that there's a huge national pride. That national pride is at an all-time high for people, and men volunteered to go out and fight for their country with this idea that I am a hero. And it was kind of this romantic thing to go and to fight, go to war for your country. They quickly realized that there was nothing romantic about this, however, and that war was, as we've heard say, hell. All right. During this time, World War One was primarily fought on two fronts. Okay, that means two kind of landing spots, right? The Eastern Front ran along Russia and Austria. All right, so they're kind of on that eastern side of Europe, and then the Western Front ran throughout the eastern part. The western front ran throughout the eastern part of kind of that northeastern part of France. Okay, and what we saw here is we saw that that on both of these fronts, these armies would dig in, and it was called trench warfare. And these trenches ran for hundreds of miles, and the soldiers would kind of hunker down, dig into these trenches, um, and kind of fight from the trenches. All right. It was a terrible, terrible conditions there. Lots of disease, and just horrific. Um, the land in between the two trenches. So, say if I'm in the German army and I'm in this trench, and someone else is in the French army in this trench, and we're fighting on the Western Front there in northeast France. The land in between those two trenches was called no man's land. Okay, and that was the land where the area where lots of death also occurred, as they tried to take more land, and it was just a horrible situation, obviously. So we saw the introduction of trench warfare take place during World War One as well, and then as it goes on, more countries joined in the war as well. The United States finally joined in 1917 when the ship Lusitania was sunk by Germany, and this was considered an act of war. The United States was neutral; we were not involved at that time. But once that happened, the United States finally joined in 1917. The sinking of the ship Lusitania actually took place a year or two prior to us joining in. But that was kind of poking the bear. We weren't involved. Okay. And we'll also kind of see that as we move into World War II, that the United States wasn't involved. And again, Germany attacked Pearl Harbor. We probably know that. And then that got us involved. But again, that's World War II. We're talking about World War One. So with the addition of the United States into World War One, that was a major difference maker. All right, as a result, we sent tons of soldiers and arms and all that to the area, and really kind of helped turn the tide on World War One. And then as a result, World War One ended on November 11th, 1918, at 11 a.m. All right, so 11/11/1918 at 11 a.m. Um, After this time, the um, what's saying Germany and really the Central Powers were charged with repaying the war debt for many of the other countries. We see that Germany actually doesn't fully repay their war debt actually till 2010. Okay, so just 10 years ago. Um, and so, but we'll talk more about that as we get into the interwar years and then World War II. So that's pretty much World War One in a nutshell. Just want to give you a little introduction of that before we start to wrap this unit up. Okay, so that's about it. If you have any questions, let me know. We'll see you in class. Thanks. Bye.